Hello, hello. So a while ago, me and my grandfather, we did a video. I think it was actually the first video that we've ever done, but we made a video talking about what fascism is, explaining what fascism is. And ever since I've become more, I guess, educated on philosophy and politics, I have been embarrassed by that video. So I'm going to be kind of doing a redux of that video and explain what fascism is really. And I'm going to be using Deleuze and Guattari to do it. So if you haven't, I guess, if you're not familiar with Deleuze and Guattari, specifically if you're not familiar with what Deleuze and Guattari mean by schizophrenia or deterritorialization and reterritorialization, we have videos explaining that. So if you're not familiar, I definitely recommend checking those out first. Otherwise, you're probably not going to understand anything that I say here. So yeah, anyway, let's get into it. So basically, Deleuze and Guattari, they thought that all societies throughout history have undergone a continual process of deterritorialization and deconstruction. And capitalism is no exception. Except one of the interesting things about capitalism is that it has a method of preserving itself and protecting itself against deterritorializing elements within society. And basically this protective force, this protective, I guess, barrier, is what Deleuze and Guattari called capitalism's tendency to re-territorialize and, I guess, re-adopt deterritorializing elements. So basically, capitalism will re-territorialize elements by I guess, robbing them of their revolutionary deterritorializing capabilities and adopting them into the system of Oedipus and into the system of capitalism. So yeah. Anyway, Deleuze and Guattari, they also explained what schizophrenia is via this model. So basically, Deleuze and Guattari said that schizophrenia, and obviously because psychosis is one of the main elements of schizophrenia as a mental illness, basically they said that schizophrenia is a deterritorializing force. However, this deterritorializing force of schizophrenia undergoes an attempted re-territorializing process via, capitalism. So capitalism attempts to re-territorialize schizophrenia, and this means that there is a conflict now between capitalism and schizophrenia. And the result of this conflict is the development of psychosis. And basically, psychosis is very unique. It's very interesting because psychosis is a result of re-territorialization and capitalism winning out in this conflict. So psychosis, basically its form, is a revolutionary deterritorializing anti-capitalist force, but its content, its actual essence, is pro-capitalist, a pro-capitalist re-territorializing force that reinforces capitalism. So with this model, we can pretty easily pinpoint what fascism actually is and how it comes about. So fascism, I want to say here that, if you've ever talked to any fascists or anyone that's kind of aligned with fascism, they'll say that fascism is a third positionist political position. In other words, fascists will say that fascism is opposed to both capitalism and communism and instead seeks a third centrist position between the two. However, you'll notice that historically, fascism has always been pro-capitalist. It's always either adopted capitalistic economic policies or aided capitalism in some way, shape, or form. So you can see here that the content of fascism is the form of fascism is anti-capitalist. It presents itself, it poses itself as an anti-capitalist, I guess, political program, but in reality, its essence is very pro-capitalist and seeks to reinforce capitalism. So you can kind of see here that fascism and psychosis are basically describing the same thing. The political position that is fascism and psychosis are basically the same thing because both are in their in their form, they present themselves as anti-capitalist deterritorializing forces, but inside, inherently, they are both pro-capitalist and re-territorializing forces. So yeah. Now, this can also lead us to a very interesting revelation. You'll notice throughout history that fascist regimes have been very inconsistent with their policies. There's no there's not like a set checklist of like what describes fascism, right? Because fascist governments they're very variable, they're very inconsistent in their policies and in their ideas. One of the greatest differences you can kind of pinpoint throughout history is Germany when it was fascist and Spain. So like the difference between the Nazis and the Phalange. You can kind of see here a very big difference between the two, even though they're still fascist. So this can show us, this historical analysis can show us that fascism, despite, being fascism, can appear in a lot of different forms. The only thing common between all these different forms is that they are all fascist, right? Now, this model of what fascism is and how it comes about can kind of offer us a reason as to why this is. And it's because there are a lot of different deterritorializing elements that are, I guess, available for attempted reterritorialization. So different, I guess, strains or variants of fascism are results of different deterritorializing elements being reterritorialized. So basically these elements, they're all very different. They're all different deterritorializing elements, but the only thing that they have in common is that they've been reterritorialized and have become psychotic. So this can kind of explain all the differences within fascism, despite the fact that, all these differences between all these historical examples of fascism are still, fascist all the same. So to basically wrap up the video and give a very succinct, short description of what fascism is in essence the psychosis of capitalism. It is capitalism in psychosis, and capitalism when it adopts psychotic elements. So yeah, that would basically wrap up the video, wrap up the subject as a whole. Thank you for watching.